Hey, everybody, we will get started in just a minute. Just want to make sure folks can join us from the waiting room. And feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, share where you're joining us from. All right, everybody, we'll get started. So this is Elevating the Library Experience with Creative Programming. I'm Devin Wad, the Instruction Librarian for NC Live. And today I have four fantastic panelists from our member libraries. So Daisy Shute is the Community Engagement Librarian at Hickory Public Library. Jenny Levins-Hertel is the Community Engagement Librarian at Iredell County Public Library. Laura Fontaine is the Community Engagement Librarian at NC State University Libraries, and Lizzie Weisnett is the Young Adult Program Coordinator at Burt County Public Library. And we'll start off by sharing some different examples of programming from our panelists. So Daisy is going to kick us off with some examples from Hickory Public Library.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I'm just going to feature a couple programs that I've done, and what I kind of wanted to talk about is the process that I use for planning programs. So a lot of times I'll get an idea, and that is where my inspiration comes from. And then I always have a goal. What am I trying to achieve with every program that I plan? And every program that I do, I believe needs to tie into the library values. So for an example, I've got a few that I'll share here. Hickory has a lot of beautiful parks. Catawba County, we're growing really fast. We're trying to attract a lot of people, and hiking is one of our selling points. So I partnered with Parks and Rec to create this hiking club. And we wanted it to be really accessible to all different kinds of body types. Another inspiration I had was women often don't feel safe hiking alone. So giving opportunity to hike in a group. And some of the values it touches on is partnerships, connection, accessibility. And this one was fun because we also partnered with Catawba County Parks and had a park ranger do an outdoor educational hike where they did like plant ID and trail safety and stuff like that. You can move on to the next one. This one was really cool, and the inspiration from this came from the TV show Forged in Fire. I noticed that a lot of those people are in North Carolina, and so I was like, I feel like I can find one. So Night Owl Ironworks is in Rutherfordton, which is about an hour from here, and they were really awesome, totally willing to drive out. They brought like an anvil and tools. Obviously, they didn't do any blacksmithing in the library. My goal was to get some men in the library because we don't see a ton of men at programs. It's mostly females, or, however they identify. But this program was really successful. The amount of 20 to 30-year-old men who came for this program that I have never seen before, you could tell from all different backgrounds. That was a really successful turnout. I think I had like 35 people, which is really great for a library program. And some of the values I wanted to focus on was creativity, connection, learning, and something for everyone, trying to, again, appeal to a wider demographic. If you could advance. This was a fun one that we did. I did an outreach at our local skate shop, and I brought our Cricut machine with some permanent vinyl, and they could design a decal and put it on their skateboard. And people were really like confused, kind of. They were like, why is the library at the skate shop? But that was a kind of my goal. My goal was, pop up in an unusual place And I really wanted to kind of promote our learning lab, which is new, our Cricut machine, which is all fairly new in the past couple of years. And again, some of our values, learning, connection, creativity, and you can advance. And then this is just a display of other programs that we've done. We have a book club that travels to different restaurants. And sometimes we go to parks. Every month we meet someplace new. It's a bring your own book. We don't do assigned reading, very casual, but that's what the participants of this book club like. They don't like, it's like low pressure, grab some dinner, chat about books. Another one that I really liked is the El Poder de tu Plato, is a partnership with our local an organization called Centro Latino, and they serve our local Latinx community. And I had an instructor who is certified in a curriculum called Physicians for Responsible Medicine that is all plant-based food directed for adults with chronic illness such as diabetes, heart disease, obesity. But they offer the curriculum in Spanish and they target it towards Latinx foods. So things like how to make your tacos healthier and plant-based tacos, things like that. And so we are working with them to offer these classes in Spanish, and they bring volunteers to help with translations. The instructor does speak Spanish, but she's a little bit nervous. So that's a really great partnership that I'm super excited about. And then just some other things that we do. We have authors. Our songwriting club is monthly. We try to do yoga on the lawn in the summer. And spring foraging workshop was cool. We had a park ranger come and talk about plant IDs that you could eat and ethical foraging and foraging rules in certain parks and stuff like that. So yeah, that's just an example of some of the programs that we've done at our library. And I'm going to pass it along because there's a lot of really great programs here.
All right, so our next set of programs are going to be shared by Laura from NC State University Libraries.
Thanks, Devin. Hi, everyone. I'm Lara. I'm the community engagement librarian. I just want to preface before I go into some of the examples that there are a lot of folks on our staff who do programming. I'm only highlighting the programs that I have been involved with or had some hand in. But there are other folks who do programs around data science, around research, around the makerspace, and things like that. So we have a wide variety. Yeah, I'll kind of model what Daisy did with hers about my goals and inspirations and things like that. So the first kind of series of programs I wanted to highlight are around gaming. And this is sort of a kind of leans into a philosophy, not a philosophy, but I guess just how I function. I tend to like to do programs that are around hobbies and topics that I enjoy. So I enjoy gaming. And so what better way to like be able to enjoy gaming at work than to host gaming programs? And it's also something that we see a lot in our libraries. Our libraries have different gaming spaces. And so I wanted to be able to use those and highlight those. My goals for these particular events, which I'll talk more a little bit about in detail, is to increase belonging and inclusion in gaming spaces because gaming itself is primarily male dominated. And so I wanted to showcase gaming in a way that is not usually seen like on mainstream media and things like that. So outside of your like first person shooter games and your sports games and things like that. So a couple of the programs that I've helped design and work with are our Fem Game Night. So our Fem Game Night is a series in which we highlight female and women identified non-binary folks in gaming, trying to provide a safe space for them to come. We reserve one of our gaming spaces for 4 hours and kind of just provide a safe space for folks to come and game, as well as to give them an opportunity to do gaming in the space that like normally wouldn't see Mario Kart or Stardew Valley or other different types of games. And then we also have a Raiders of the Lost Arcade series, which highlights different kind of indie-based games around very poignant topics. So, again, you may not think about games as being a way to kind of experience and highlight stories of grief, but there are plenty of games out there that talk about grief. And so this was one example of one we did. Each one has a different theme. And so our theme was grief for this one. We've done mental health for others. We've done LGBT issues, things like that. And then the picture below that showcases a speaker we invited. So a Twitch streamer that I follow who plays The Sims, and she streams on Twitch. She has a big following, but not like a huge internet following. But what she also does is she creates a lot of custom content for the Sims games, specifically around Black culture, Black clothing, because The Sims has been known to be very lacking in diversity. She's worked with EA to get them to help them increase the diversity of their items on there. But she also mods and creates items that kind of match more with what she likes to see in her games, and so that she and people like her can see themselves in the games they play. And so she does a lot of work around that. And so we had her come to NC State and speak about how she got into that. She hosted a workshop on how to create your own custom content for The Sims. And this was just really special because a lot of the attendees were fans of hers and had watched her on Twitch. And so when she came in, they were really excited to meet her, and we're so excited to have her in our space. And some folks even brought her gifts, which was amazing. That was probably one of my favorite gaming events. Actually, it's kind of hard to pick a favorite, but anyways, so that's one kind of series that we do. And then on the next slide, I can talk a little bit more about our wellness initiatives. So we do a lot of different types of wellness events. We partner with our prevention services department and our counseling center to provide wellness activities in the library so that folks can take a break from studying and engage in things like our Crafting Resilience series, where we do pop-ups like DIY herbal tea, stamp making, pipe cleaner, flower bouquets, fun crafts that you may not think that, college students would be interested in making pipe cleaner flowers, but they actually really like it and like that time away to kind of work with their hands and do things like that. We also invite therapy dogs to the library, which is really popular. We had mini horses come to the library too. Sorry, I see a question in the chat about the speaker that we brought in. It was Amira Virgil was who we brought in. She goes by xMiraMira on Twitch. But yeah, so we've brought therapy horses, and students really love that opportunity to kind of de-stress and relax that way. And then one of my other favorite events is creative journaling, which has become a full series we hold monthly. Students love this. I will give a shout out to Eva Perry Library in Wake County because they are the reason that I do this program. I attended their creative journaling program, and I had so much fun and got really into this whole art form. And I thought we could totally bring this to our libraries, and so I did, and now it's become a regular thing. So thank you, Wake County Public Libraries, for that. And then next, we have our author talks. So these are also very popular. We partner with our local independent bookstore to bring in authors. A lot of these authors are on book tours. And so something that I think is not super well known about how you get authors like Henry Winkler, Holly Black, and Olivia Blake is publishers will pay for their tours. So if an author is on a book tour already, has a book coming out, the publishers are looking for venues to host them. They're going to pay for the travel, pay the speaker, all of that stuff. They just, you may have to pay for the venue. So these are opportunities if you want to partner with a local venue, if your library is not big enough to host this. So for example, Henry Winkler, they wanted, I don't even remember, it was like 600-ish people they were going to sell, but the bookstore itself can't hold 600 people. So they were looking for larger venues. And that's when we were able to propose one of our spaces on campus and partner with them on that. So that's another type of program that we do. And I feel like I've been talking for a while, so that's.
All right, and now we will share, we'll have Jenny share the programming at Iredell County Public Library.
Hey, so I'm Jenny Livens Hertel, and I am the Community Engagement Librarian at Iredell County. So my role, I think, is a little bit different than some of the other librarians here. I do host programs personally, mostly outside presenters, but the bulk of my role here is actually coordinating our programming that's done by staff across all three of our branches and helping them plan and schedule events so that we're able to have the most impact on our patrons. So I want to talk a little bit first about how we've tried to make our programming more intentional in the past couple of years. We really pared things down to try to go for quality versus quantity. Before COVID hit, we basically everything we're doing, if you were doing a new program, it had to be a repeating program, it had to be a series. But we've implemented program planning forms, quarterly schedule. We've been working really hard to try to tie programming specifically in with our strategic goals, as well as the goals of our county. And instead of having the unsustainable bulk of programs that we had previously, we now have a smaller roster of monthly and weekly programming with more emphasis on individual and one-off programs that address specific interests and needs of our patrons. So that actually looks differently at each branch. Our main branch in Statesville is larger and has a more centralized location. Whereas our Harmony branch is very rural and quite small, and our Troutman location is a rapidly growing town that has a lot of small town charm, and the residents feel very strongly about supporting local. So some of the programs I wanted to highlight that we've done, you can see we've got a couple of agricultural-based programs here. The native plants with beneficial uses and the landscaping native plants are actually done by the same speaker. We've been doing that at our Harmony location because the patrons there have a lot of interest in agriculture. And we're kind of like dipping our toes in at the Statesville branch due to having implemented a seed library recently. So we've had a kind of like a big boost in interest in planting from that. The honeybee program that we recently did at the Troutman Library is actually something we partnered with a local beekeeping organization for, and that garnered a lot of interest. We also have a bluegrass group that meets at one of our branch libraries, and we were able to coordinate with them to do something with our last year's summer reading program, both at that branch, but we got them to come to Maine as well, so that was really fun. And the programs to the right, the cardio drumming and small business programs, we actually work with a couple of different partner organizations for those. Cardio drumming is one of the programs we've partnered with the local council on aging for. We started off as just kind of working with our representative to try to see what the interests are for our specific group of seniors in the area. And after the cardio drumming program, we had so much interest in that we're just going to make it a regular occurrence. So that was a happy surprise. And we also are lucky enough to be actually a couple of blocks away from a community college. So they have reached out to us about doing more programming in conjunction with some of their interests. So we're going to be running a series of small business programs with them. We also have, as a bit of a more recent development, been trying to incorporate more family programming into our schedule. So in addition to our story times and regular programs aimed at specific age groups, we also do monthly family programs aimed at a wider bulk of ages. So stuff like crafts and party type events with different stations and games. Our family book club, where the family is urged to read together for better understanding of the book. At the end of the reading period, we actually host a pizza party where the families are able to kind of face off against each other, Jeopardy style, and it's a really good time. So we also have a homeschooling group that we're working with at our main location. That we try to be a bit more flexible with activity-wise. And lastly, I wanted to highlight some of the passive programs that we do. This is anything that doesn't have a live set time that we advertise. And a lot of these can be prepared ahead of time or set up with very minimal effort. It's a great way to supplement live programming if you need to pad your numbers or if you're just feeling really burnt out. We do some take and make activities. You can see a couple down at the bottom there. The ones I have pictured are ones that we've given out for young children, but we have done this for adults as well. I've got a picture of our seed library at the bottom left. Like I said before, that's really taken off. And we've also done things like adult coloring, where we just set out coloring pages and markers on the tables and let people go wild. We have a community puzzle table set up at all 3 of our locations, and that's been surprisingly popular. And we also do things like setting up little photo booths. We had done a lot of video programming when COVID hit, and we thought that the backdrops would be a great way to repurpose some of the frames that we ordered for like our green screen video filming. So if you've got any of those sitting around, that's a fun way to keep using them. And I don't have these pictured, but we also do, especially down in youth services, a lot of scavenger hunts that patrons can participate in, and like large seek and find posters. And you can get a lot of engagement if you just offer like a really small thing as a prize, like a piece of library swag or even a piece of candy.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenny. Lizzie will share the programming at Burke County Public Library.
Hey, I'm Lizzie. I am actually the young adult program coordinator is my official title, but in general, I kind of do whatever's needed on a given day. But the programs I'm sharing are a piece of what everybody in our library has done. So in addition to, we have weekly story times for every age group at every branch. And so in addition to that, we try really hard to partner with our community. So one of the things that has been working really well lately has been our Read to a Dog program. We partnered with our local animal shelter to basically book time to have patrons come in with their kids and literally sit outside of, you know, a crate or whatever with a dog and read to a shelter dog. And that kind of has like the tool, it has like, there's a benefit of the dogs are getting some socialization. And then on the other hand, you know, the kids are getting ready to read and they're being able to do that without any like judgment, because dogs are better than people to read to. That's just kind of where we're rolling with that. Some other stuff that we've done though, we do a lot with animals. Our community is, they will show up if you bring any kind of animal into the library. We did some yoga with cats. So once again, we partnered with our animal shelter. We brought the cats into the library. And we had, you know, signs up that was gonna, there's cats in this room. If you're allergic, don't go in there today. But we were able to do that and partner with the local yoga studio, which was awesome. And then next month we are offering for Mental Health Awareness Month, goat snuggling, which is a thing. They were going to bring in baby goats into the library, and you can sign up and hold a goat and just like snuggle with a goat. And it's for all ages. So you like, we have families who are already registered. We have, you know, single adults who, I have friends that are coming because we just want to hold a goat. And so things like that, we're able to partner with, and it doesn't cost a lot. I think that's like the biggest thing, is that we're bringing attention to what exists already in our communities and connecting our patrons with that. So they can, you know, when they leave the library, they have somewhere else to go. One of the things we did last year that I had so much fun on, we partnered with Good Karma Ranch alpacas in Iron Station and with our local Parks and Rec department for transportation. And we went and did alpaca yoga. So we actually went to the farm, we toured the farm, we learned about what that looks like and all the different things that come with alpacas. And then we did yoga with them, and it was a lot of fun to have. We had all body types, all like ages and gender identity. It was awesome to see, just kind of getting out there and moving and learning, and also kind of introducing the idea that libraries are about learning, but it doesn't have to happen with just the books on our shelves, which is really neat. I do a lot of outreach myself. One of the things I do, I actually start back this month, and I'll be running every month through October. We have a local campground, and I actually go on site to the campground once a month and do programs with the kids who are there. And so we found out that a lot of families will kind of move in there in the summer, or they have space, or it's easier to spend their summers there. And then they have, you know, kids who love it and they love the nature part of it and they're out there. And then you have the other kids that are like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. There are bugs. And so introducing like, hey, even if you don't live here, you can still use the library and come play with us. And this is what we have to offer. And so that's been really great. One of the pictures I included was we have a foam cannon. It was one of those things we really wanted to do it one time, and then we looked at the cost of renting one, and our director was like, well, how much does it cost to just buy one? And so we have a foam cannon. And so I was like, hey, why don't I bring this to you guys? But really kind of introducing the idea that libraries are more than just books and reading. And every year we host our kickoff to summer party. We do that on, we have a big courthouse square, and it's almost like a festival. But anyone who has anything to offer to the community, we encourage them to come out and have a booth and either hand stuff out or have a game or something. But the idea is connecting our patrons with this is what's going on in your community. And we want to connect you with that. We are not competing with any of these things. We want you to do everything. And so partnerships are a huge piece of what we do. And it's a great way to make sure we have some like diversity in our programs. If you can go to the next slide, please. And so again, we have some wonderful staff who do story times, but we also strive really hard to make sure that we go beyond the story time. And so once a kid kind of graduates out of that, we want to make sure that they don't get dropped, that they don't feel like, okay, well, now I don't have anything. So we do I do teen programming at all 3 of our branches every week. And so they know at this, at this date and this time at this library, this is for me. And then we have a lot of help with adults, and we try to kind of interconnect these things so that once they graduate high school, they're not done with the library. They're not done playing with us. Like, we're going to carry them on and through. So one of the things that we have coming up is our photo preservation in our North Carolina room. That program is amazing. They started many years ago calling it Picture Birth, and they were just collecting pictures from the community, and now there are thousands of pictures that have been brought in and scanned, and the history is there. And so they kind of worked with the community, and the feedback was, well, how do I restore the photos at my home, like the ones that I have? What if I don't want to give them to you? I want to have them. So we're working with that. But we do like book clubs. Our Oxymorons, which is one of my favorite ones we do, that is for new adult books. And so it also helps to kind of explain to the community what new adult books are, and how like you're going to find some in YA and some in adult, and how this is its own thing. And so that is for teens and adults, and it has been one of my favorite ones to watch grow, because it has grown so organically, and they choose their own books. And it is fantastic. Everyone there is now like their friends, they're bringing other friends, and that's another one. We're not paying a whole lot. All we do is provide the snacks. And snacks are essential if you're going to keep the teens there. But some other things that we noticed, we have patrons who they can't come to the library. They, whether it's their work schedule or they, you know, when they get off work, they've got kids and the kids aren't doing this today or whatever. And we found that takeaway programs have been fantastic. So we have an adult and YA subscription boxes. And those just have a library book in them. And we will have like a craft or activity in them and just some swag. And those can be, and the biggest thing, like stickers are huge, keychains, anything just that they can have. I've had so many patrons come in and say, I look forward to this every month. This is the thing I wait on because I can't afford to get an Ipsy box. I can't afford to get this, that, or the other, but I can go to the library and get this one thing. And it's like, I get a gift every month. And it's patrons who they're like, they can't go to programs. So we work really hard to make sure that our patrons, that we are serving our whole community, not just the ones who are our regulars. And our Spice Club has been hilarious and awesome. We literally are handing out a spice with the recipe. They can either like make it at home, or we have the patrons named it a chop shop. And we had to get that one approved and explain what we meant when we said we wanted the library to have a chop shop. But where they go in and they actually kind of come together and make whatever the recipe was that we recommended with that spice. But it's one of the things of it is equal parts education and recreation. If you can go to the next slide. And lastly is our budget friendly programs. Our budgets are not infinite. Libraries are always looking for more funding, but program doesn't have to be expensive for it to be effective. One of the biggest ones is our anime club. I found out through actually an ALA group that Crunchyroll has a public library outreach program. And basically what this means is you can email Crunchyroll, which is the streaming service for anime. And as long as you're doing it with your library email, they will give you a free premium account and performance rights, which means you can show this anime in the library. You can advertise what you're showing, and it costs you nothing. The only thing that I do with this is I buy cup of noodles ramen and like bottled water. And we have an electric kettle. And that is their favorite thing. I have a full house every month. They are just in there ready to watch their little anime and eat ramen and talk, and it's adorable. We also have our needlework in the morning. That group meets almost every week on Fridays, but they meet somewhere different. But it is a group of individuals who come together and they're making something. They're all like, there is knitting, there's crocheting, there's, you know, actual like needle point, there's cross stitch. It's wild. And they are all friends. Like you will constantly see them in the library together or going to programs together. It's wonderful. And it's one of the things, it has lasted through, I think, 4 adult programmers at this point. It's like, no matter what, they're going to go to this. Another big one that I started during COVID actually was our D&D at the library. And I will talk more about that in a little bit of how that kind of exploded. But that is one, it doesn't cost us anything but staff time. That is something I picked up D&D during COVID. And I found out that quite literally when we started hosting games at the library, we were the only game in town. There's no one else playing. And so it was a real learning curve of how do you host a game with players who don't know each other, and how do we kind of kick that off. And that was really neat. But that is it is constantly on a waiting list. Like there is always just a list of, it just runs all the time. But some other things we do that cost absolutely nothing in the interim is like our improv night. Those my teens do, and anytime they can go up there and just be loud and make a fool of themselves, they're going to. And that's something, the talent show one is coming up next week, I believe, where they're just going to show off their worst talent that is appropriate. And I am constantly telling them that it does indeed have to be appropriate. But we have done like our inventions night where they had to create an invention and sell it to the room. And the idea is to make people laugh at you. And it gives them some exposure to public speaking without, like, the idea is to make them laugh at you. So it's like, no, it's okay if they're laughing at you. It's okay if they're giving you a weird look, and giving them that experience and that exposure. And it costs nothing. It's just, we host it. We don't provide anything, but whether we need like a blackboard or whatever. Tonight we're doing the blackout poetry. We're using our discarded books. We have our game nights, and that is literally just board games that we keep in stock. We pull them out with the snacks, and the teens are happy to take it from there. Like they will play game night until I'm like, okay, guys, the library is closing and I want to go home. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. And so those are things that like our library is doing that is working really, really well for us. Somebody asked about the Cozy Mysteries. So that was actually through Kensington. They reached out to us and we had a Cozy Con. They facilitated getting the authors to come in. And that program went really, really well. We had 2 authors that were there that day, and they were wonderful to work with. They pulled up like chairs. They did not stand in the front of the room. They sat down with the patrons. It was absolutely fantastic. That one was done through Kensington, I believe, was the organization that ran that. But they do that. That is a thing. So I encourage you to reach out to them. They're wonderful.
Is Kensington a local organization or national?
It is a publishing house. It is
Okay.
They specifically work with like the Cozy Mystery thing.
Very cool. All right, so we have our first panel question. What do you believe are the key ingredients for creating library programs that not only meet patrons' needs, but also inspire genuine enthusiasm and participation? And where do you get your ideas for programming from? So Daisy is going to kick us off with this question.
Yeah, so I like this because I think I work with this a lot because oftentimes, I don't know if you found this to be true, but sometimes you have the information that somebody needs and you have very low attendance. And so I'm talking like financial wellness, home buying, the boring stuff, right? And then your craft programs will be on a waiting list. And so sometimes it's like, how do I get people to come to the stuff that they like need to know, but is not as exciting? So one of the things that I try to do is I try to offer a mix of fun and educational programs every month and use those popular programs to advertise and spread the word about the educational ones. I think it's really important that you're willing to engage in a program yourself as the programmer. I have done Tai Chi in a dress before because only one person came and they felt really embarrassed about it. I had no idea what I was doing, but it was fine. We had fun. It was a good time. I always try to spend time talking to patrons before and after the program. And then I found a really good way to get repeat patrons and get them to come to stuff that they might not normally come to, is you can kind of like talk them into it. Like, it's going to be great. It's super fun, very educational. But, you know, as they see you and you remember them and you get to know each other, you kind of become friends. I feel like that's a really great way to create engagement in your programs. I also think atmosphere is something to consider in your programs. So I like to have our programming room has like a warm light option. So like sometimes programming spaces have these like really bright white, staunch, very uncomfortable lights. So if you can like add a lamp with a warm light bulb, it's like that kind of creates like a more intimate space. Music is really great. Instead of sitting in an empty room in silence, if you put some background music on, then you don't have to worry so much about like trying to make conversation if you don't want to make conversation. And I'm dropping a link in the chat for music in libraries. There are rules. If you want to review that, I'll leave that up to you. Coffee, snacks, that's been mentioned. That's another great way to kind of like break the ice a little bit. I also think something to think about is gamification of your boring topics. So there's one I'm going to share also in the chat that I think is like such a cool program. It's not my program, but it's an Oregon Trail live action simulation to teach about financial wellness. And I'm sharing the link from Programming Librarian. It has all the information you need. It seems like it was a ton of work. But I was thinking like along those lines, you could do like a Monopoly style game to learn about buying a house, you know? So if you can like take your program and make it fun, like through gamification, that might be a good way to kind of increase engagement. And then for question number 2, I get my programs from a lot of different sources. I'm sure we all have a lot of sources as programmers, but I think, you know, I try to start with our strategic plan, our library mission, what are our values, and go from there a lot of times. So like wellness is a value. So what kind of wellness programming can we do? Making sure we're doing that a few times a year, at least once a quarter, having some kind of wellness focused program. I also take stuff from any kind of community health surveys. If you have a public health department, you can, you know, tailor your wellness programs to what your community needs. So the Catawba County Public Health does a community health assessment every few years. And so that's where I learned that we have a really big diabetes crisis in our community. So when I was planning healthy cooking classes, I knew I needed to focus on diabetes because that's a need in our community. Partnerships, that's a great way to get program ideas. I really encourage you to talk to your community partnerships and ask them what they need, especially your nonprofit organizations that are serving different facets of the community. That way you're not planning programs that nobody needs or that they're already handling. See if there's some way that you can fill that gap. So like when we partner with Central Latino, you know, they said we have this health need. I think these cooking classes would be really popular. So that's kind of fitting into what they're doing instead of taking away or repeating. The Programming Librarian website that I shared, great resource. You can search by budget, you can search by library type, you can search by age, you can really filter out. You can submit your programs to there if you do something really cool and you kind of want to like push yourself. I've put a couple of my programs on there. And they also have the Programming Librarian Interest Group on Facebook, which is just programs. You can ask your programming questions, you get inspiration, people share documents. You could be like, how do you guys handle this situation? It was really awkward. I didn't know what to do. So that's a really good resource. Just it's purely programming. And then I also get ideas from TikTok, social media. I'm seeing what's popular. Like right now, there's a lot of buzz around food preservation, cutting your grocery costs. Like a lot of people are talking about making bread and doing stuff like that. So like I'm going to try to find ways to meet that. We have a program coming up called Shop Like a Homesteader. She's going to talk about buying stuff on sale and preserving it, you know, so that's trying to pull from what's popular on social media and use that as inspiration for programs. Patron requests, I try to do them when I can. It's not always possible. And then I also use like Nextdoor, or if you have like, we have a Hickory community Facebook group. I use that a lot. And I use it, for example, somebody might post, does anyone know where I can learn how to line dance? Okay, so some people are interested in line dancing. Cool. And someone might comment, yeah, this place does line dancing, or this is an instructor. Well, now I found a teacher. You know what I mean? If I can get them to come at the library, then boom, that's done. You know, so I kind of like, what are people talking about, posting about locally? Or if someone says, I'm an artist who does this, I reach out. I found authors that way. We did writing series that way with an editor. She like has her own editing company. So I use that a lot, honestly. But that's pretty much where I get my inspiration from. I don't know if I'm sure other people have other ideas that they want to share.
Panelists, any other example ideas for programming, where you get those from, or key ingredients for creative library programs?
Um, kind of jumping on the idea of like listening to your patrons, a lot of my programming ideas, I have a young adult advisory board, which means I work with a group of teens once a month, and they tell me what they want, and they know that like their job is to tell me if I bring them an idea, their job is to tell me, is this a bad idea? Is this something like, because I think oftentimes there's things like we think the community wants this, or like I see a lot of times like this is for teens, and I'm like, did you ask one teenager, like just one of them, because they would have told you no. um, and so yeah, reaching out with the community to see what your community is interested in, because a lot of times I'll look at things that are popular mainstream, but within my community there's no interest. It doesn't make sense where we are. So yeah, definitely talk to your patrons and have those relationships.
All right, we are going to move on to question 2. How can libraries balance the demand for traditional programming with the need to innovate and introduce experimental initiatives to keep patrons engaged and excited about library offerings? And so Laura is going to lead this question for us.
So I have a love-hate relationship with the word innovative because I feel like it's a very much a buzzword. And I think when you think of innovative, your top thing is thinking like newest technology, newest type of software, newest skill. And I don't kind of look at innovative that way. So I think a lot of low tech programming can be considered innovative. Daisy talked about getting her ideas from social media. That's kind of what I think about when I think of innovative, like what's on trend, what's popular, what are people talking about, what are they interested in? So like my examples would be like I mentioned creative journaling. I had seen a bunch of TikTok videos about this creative journaling, junk journaling, scrapbooking, collaging stuff that I was like really interested in, but you know, it requires a lot of materials. And so then when I saw the public library had a workshop doing that and they were supplying materials for it, I figured it was a good way to kind of see what this was about and see if I would like it. So, you know, that's something that I don't think traditionally we would think of as innovative, but I definitely see it as innovative because there's a lot of interest in it right now. I mean, we all know, well, maybe we don't all know. I'm not going to assume we all know, but something that I've seen a lot of is that friendship bracelets, thank you, Taylor Swift, are like now super popular and like people love making them and giving them. And it's like become a whole culture of like friendship bracelets, like hosting a program or a workshop about making your own friendship bracelets and providing supplies and stuff like that. That to me feels innovative, but may not necessarily be what we would traditionally think of as innovative. I think some other ways that you can balance that demand too is kind of leveraging the interests of your staff. So looking to folks outside of like the programming core group or department or person and seeing if there are people on staff who have interests or hobbies that might be able to like, or maybe interested in hosting events on them or like helping lead an event on it, or looking in your local community for like new things that are popping up and how you can bring those things into the library. And thinking about too, you know, what resources are you using in your life? Maybe you're using a new app or a new, I don't know, piece of software or website or something that's really helping you. Is that something that you think would be useful for other folks to learn about and stuff like that? So um, I think also too, just trying stuff is really important. Dedicating yourself to maybe trying one new thing, learning about one new piece of technology, finding somebody in the community who can come in and teach or showcase, you know, a free 3D modeling software or a free photo editing type of thing. I think that's something that you can do as well. And I just think that we shouldn't be afraid to try something new. Because even if it doesn't work, if you have one person show up or nobody shows up, that's okay, because at least you tried. And then, so I think that's always important because you could also try something that you think is not going to work and then it turns out to be a hit. So yeah, I hope that answers that question. And I don't know if other people have thoughts.
Any other thoughts on this from the panel? All right, We will jump into question 3. So when you have limited time and resources, who are your partners that you can reach out to? What partnerships have you cultivated because of this? And we'll have Lizzie start us off with this question.
So whenever I'm looking at something that I have limited time or I don't have the resources to do, the first thing I do is I look at the community and see who's doing it well, and how do I partner with them. And a lot of times I want to start at home. Is there any county department that has that? And that can be some things you don't think about, like DSS or the health department, and then looking over at Parks and Rec, looking at those things, and those are great partners, especially like the Parks and Rec we work with, especially if we're low on space. As libraries, our library, we have at each branch we have about one programming room, and if there's a story time going on, well, what am I going to do? I can't do anything, or can I work that around? And then once outside of there, I'm going to look at things in the community that are working. Like we have a wonderful credit union, and they have great presentations that are ready made, and they're happy to walk in with them. My chiropractor's office, they have presentations they are dying to give the community. I've worked with like our local women's shelter to come in and talk about things like teen dating violence and things like that. So there are organizations at home that have things ready made that would love to come in, that you can connect your community with the resources that already exist. And a lot of times when I'm looking at partnerships and how do I cultivate those, is I want to have those relationships established before I'm like, I gotta have something right now, and I need help. And so some things I really look out to when I'm looking at who am I gonna start partnering with, I look at what the community needs. What are they interested in? Who is not being served? And our community is really sports and nature focused, which is great. We have some wonderful hiking spots. There is every sport hill that you can't imagine, there's 5 of them everywhere. But if you're someone like me who's steeped pretty deeply into nerd culture, there's nothing. We have one game shop, and they don't run, Dungeons and Dragons. And so these are things, whenever I started our D&D, I reached out to a friend who was a pro game master. They run their games online. I reached out to them and I was like, hey, how do I do this? I don't know how to play the game. I don't know how to bring these people together. This is a demographic that nobody is serving, so I have no base of reference for what they want. So finding these people in the community that are already there, have those resources, and can meet a need that our patrons may not know about, that is a huge part of finding those relationships. But as far as like what we have cultivated, I work really closely with our Parks and Rec. I work really closely with a local campground. We are best friends with our animal shelter. Those are wonderful, like just organizations that are there. They have things they're ready to give, and they just need you to help, connect with the patrons that you already have.
Panelists, any thoughts on programming that involves very little time, resources, free program, or programs that involve free materials?
One thing I forgot to mention, there are, and I can drop the link at some point, but there's a group called Magic Kids, and you can go on their website and apply for a box. And by apply, I mean you fill out a Google form, and they will send you a massive box of Magic the Gathering stuff. I mean, I'm talking thousands of cards, deck boxes, play mats, pins, dice. I thought it was going to be like a little box, and they sent me this huge box that was very heavy, and I had to have a book cart to haul it up to my office. And I was like, there's so many cards. And so that made my game nights very different. It really leveled it up. And there's also Konami, which is the owner of Yu-Gi-Oh! They have what they call demo days, and it takes a bit of work to get to the person, but then they'll just send you a ton of Yu-Gi-Oh! Stuff, and you can just give it out, and they will connect you with a local judge who will come in and teach kids how to play the games and do that. I found that out because I happened to be dating one of the judges, and I was like, you guys just do this for libraries? Nobody told us. And so you can reach out to them, and they have a threshold that they have to hand out every year. So the minute you're like, I'll take some, they will just ship you a box of stuff, and it's great. It's just you get free stuff in the mail, and then you've got some built-in programs that you can just run and sustain off of, and you're hitting a really niche demographic. That is when I hit my high school and middle school and adult like mask presenting patrons. That's where they come in. They pile in. It's pretty wild.
Nice. All right. Well, we will head into the final question before our Q&A. So, what strategies can libraries use to gather feedback from patrons and incorporate their interests and preferences into program development effectively? Do you have patrons who are co-creators of programs? And Jenny is going to lead this one off for us.
So strategies you can use to gather feedback. Well, the first thing that came to my mind was social media, of course. You can post open-ended questions as a way to help pad your engagement metrics as well as get feedback. You can even get kind of sneaky with it. Like if you're trying to suss out whether you think there'd be enough interest in like healthy cooking, for example, or something similar to that. You could post some pictures of your cookbooks and ask people what recipes they've made recently, that sort of thing. As far as surveys and polls go, I would say don't overdo it, but occasionally having a short questionnaire that patrons can fill out after a program, or even like a longer series of programming like summer reading, is a really good way to get feedback. And you can also use the answers that you get to secure more buy-in from administration and library boards for future programming. If you're not sure how to begin with compiling survey data, I would recommend Project Outcome. It's a free online toolkit for libraries that can help you format your survey questions and interpret data in a meaningful way. Also, don't underestimate word of mouth. Like they mentioned earlier, having conversations with the patrons who attend your programs is a really good idea to get more insight onto what's bringing them in. There's a lot going on right now. People are tired. So finding out what specifically made your patron want to come to your program and spend their time there can be really helpful. Listen to your staff, of course, especially the ones who are working the front desk. They hear just about everything. Patrons love to talk, and most of the time your staff will pass that along if you ask about it. Outreach opportunities are also really great venues to get feedback from community members. And while you're there, you can also get feedback from other vendors who are there, local nonprofits who might even be interested in partnering with you. And as far as working with the public to run programs goes, we have had some really good luck with partnerships, both with outside organizations like the Regional Partnership for Children, as well as Iredell County Council on Aging. We've also worked with just regular patrons. We have a series of patrons who come in and they run a crochet club twice a month. They're lovely ladies. They come in, they work and they chat, and then they drop off their stats and leave. And we also have a patron who had approached us about doing a Zumbini program here. For anyone who's not familiar with what Zumbini is, it's kind of like Zumba, but for young children. So very high energy, but that was a really good partnership so that we had someone who actually knew what they were doing and we didn't have to try to learn to do it ourselves. I would say if you're working with the public, try to work with people that you know, people that you have a relationship with, and discuss your goals and expectations ahead of time just to make sure everything aligns. What we do is, since we're on a quarterly schedule, if we have someone who comes to us and says, hey, I want to run this series of programs at the library, I will schedule them to run just a single program. They can see what turnout's like, we can see how they interact, and then after that, we'll commit to something more long-term if they're still interested. We have unfortunately had programs that flopped because presenters were underwhelmed with the turnout or had just changed their mind about doing it. So even though it was unfortunate at the time, it was a really good learning experience and helped us reevaluate how we approach outside programming with individuals and organizations.
Panelists, do you have patrons who are co-creators of programs?
Yeah, I pull in people all the time. If I learn that they have a talent, they have a skill, I'm like, oh, when are you doing a program? We have a woman who comes to all of our paint classes. And then she was like, I make these gnomes and I paint them for every season. I was like, oh, you're doing a gnome painting class then. That's great. Yeah. And she does. And she did a great job. And she's come to so many library programs. She knows our setup, she knows how things and she also works at the school and she has done teaching in the past. So it was like, it's worked out perfectly.
All right. Now, I know we are just a little bit over time, but any questions from our audience? So feel free to submit them in chat and we can stick around for a few more minutes. All right. Question from Rachel asking, how long do you try a new program before cutting it?
My general rule is if you're going to do once a month, I try for 3 months.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. I say do something 3 times at least. My undergraduate program and my background is in advertising. My family owns a radio station. And that's how, when you are selling advertising, you don't, you need to do it for at least 3 months before it's gonna be normal or be anywhere near a routine. So at least 3 times and then let it go if it doesn't work.
We have a
So I
question.
saw where somebody asked about the board games.
Yeah.
The biggest one I have found lately has been a game called Not So Neighborly. It is a card game. It's like $15 at a game shop. It is the funniest game. It's so wholesome, but you are they are playing against each other to be a bad neighbor and burn down a pool, which doesn't make sense. So that has been their favorite one. I got that in the expansion pack, and Hex the game has been huge, especially if they have some time to play it. That's been a really big one.
All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, what I will say is we do have a list of resources that we've mentioned throughout the session. Some we haven't, like Let's Move in Libraries. but you will receive the follow-up email tomorrow morning with the recording, a feedback survey. So let us know what you liked, other topics that you'd like to see the NC Live training program focus on, and this link to the slides as well. Thank you all so much for joining us this Thursday. I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon. And thank you so much, panelists, for sharing all the fantastic programming